Here we go. So this is just a picture here of one of our sessions of Ontario Youth Parliament. This was our 2020 session, and I can only tell that because my friend Eliza is in the front row as the leader of the opposition there. So yeah, our slogan is here underneath of this title, which is "Speak your mind, know your heart, and meet new friends," which really, those are kind of the three pillars that we focus everything in our organization around. So this is just a picture of the 2020 group that came together over the Family Day long weekend right before coronavirus hit. So these are the delegates, the cabinet, the executive, the adult resource counselors, who we just call ARCs for short. There's a lot of acronyms in yeah, lots of acronyms in Ontario Youth Parliament, or OYP as we call it. Yeah, so this is just the general structure of how the organization works. So we are a charity organization, and we are actually governed by the Ontario Youth Parliament Association, which consists of the board of directors, which I am on. The premier and leader of the opposition get elected separately at the OYP event, and then are automatically placed on the board of directors as a result of that. And then we also have the president of the board, PR director, operations director, which is like documents and policies, and finance, of course. And we have our Senate. And then underneath the, did not mean to do that. Underneath our executive are all of our cabinet committees. We have the finance committee, the house committee, public relations, which is my job, and the Love and Spirit committee, which is a committee that's very unique to OYP. We're modeled after the Ontario legislature, and yeah, you won't be able to find a Love and Spirit committee in the actual Ontario legislature, so which is unfortunate. They should have one. I think it would make things a lot better. So this is the executive that we've had since we were elected in 2020. So we actually haven't gotten to see each other in person, all five of us together, since that election. I've seen Bronwyn, we've hung out like maybe once, and that was last summer. Dylan and I, same thing, hung out maybe once since this, and these are all like super close friends of mine. That really sucks that we can't see each other. And we're trying to do all of this work to put together a big in-person event while not being able to see each other in person. So yeah, our house leader is Kira Mullen, Minister of Individual Discipleship is Dylan Coffin, Bronwyn Clifton is the Premier, there's me as the Leader of the Opposition, and Mia Hansen is our Registrar and Finance Minister. It's really weird looking at this picture because we've all changed so much in the last year and a half. Like, we look so different now, and it would be interesting to like take another picture and see how, like, see the differences just between all that time. Oh, yes. All right, so the first, like, and most important part of our organization, I think, is debate. So that comes from the Speak Your Mind pillar of our organization. And we have on our cabinet, there are youth legislation ministers that write bills that are important to the youth of Ontario, that are current to what's going on in, you know, the political climate. And we also make sure to write them in a way that's debatable. So we don't, our goal isn't to write perfect bills. Our goal is to have a fun time debating them. And we also have the joke bill, which is a very fun and wacky version of debate. We put on costumes. This particular set of pictures was taken in 2020 for our summer versus winter joke bill. The one that we're planning right now is pirates versus cowboys. And yeah, it's really, I'm excited. It's gonna be fun. So, and fun fact, in the top right corner, that's my brother, that picture. We have lots of fun together. There's dances, there's a banquet, and there's a dance at the banquet. We love to dance. There's cheers. You can see in the first picture, we're just screaming at each other from opposite sides of the house. But obviously none of this right now is really possible in the current COVID world. So we have lots to contend with. And we also, you form lifelong friendships here and very valuable connections. I've met some of like the greatest friends from here, and Ontario Youth Parliament for my entire life has been an extension of my family because of my immediate family's connection with it and involvement in it. It's just always been an extension of that family for me. So unfortunately, we had all of those fun pictures of all of the great times that we all have together at OYP. And then right after OYP 2020, COVID hits. Just barely a month later, we just scraped by without having to have that first OYP canceled. And then with COVID striking, everything had to turn virtual. We have a thing called the Chief Arcs Levy every May. It's kind of like a debrief post Parliament to, for the incoming and outgoing executive to talk to each other, figure out what went well, what didn't, what could you do better. So that was online for like the first time ever. We started planning virtual cabinet meetings for the first time ever. There's no precedent for any of this. So myself and my premier Bronwyn, we really had to come up with all of this from scratch because none of this had ever really been done before. We had obviously had like small committee meetings in between cabinet meetings that were online, but we had never really done something of this scale before. So it was truly a very unique experience. And then, we had been working towards hopefully having a 2021 Parliament once 2020 was like all out the window. And then we had to cancel because numbers just weren't looking good. COVID was not getting better. Once we announced that we had to cancel and we extended the term of all of the cabinet ministers and the executive for another year because we wanted them to be able to have a parliament. And so as a result of that, we did end up losing some cabinet ministers. We've had to do another cabinet selection where we added on another few, and we've still, like as early as last week, we lost another cabinet minister. Just because they can't stay committed to it for this long, which is totally fair. None of us expected to be in this position. It's also been a struggle to stay connected with everybody, especially because we're all over the province. And, we don't get to see each other. So it's been a real struggle with maintaining that feeling of community within the cabinet of this year, within the whole organization. So we've been trying to have lots of virtual events to bring people together. And it's also nice to know that for some of these cabinet ministers, this is like our only escape from the real world. And we get to come here and we get to talk about OYP, which is really nice. We've had to change our a big foundation of our business model, which is we used to, on the weekend of Ontario Youth Parliament and in the cabinet meetings, we would ask people in that community to house us for the weekend. We would ask for billets. And we would, and they would just take us in and let us sleep at their house, and they would feed us breakfast and, give us coffee in the mornings and then drive us to the church. But because of COVID, we were like, okay, nobody's going to want to do this anymore. People aren't going to want to bring strangers into their house when everyone in the world is sick. So we really had to fast track a lot of the changes that we were making on an organizational level, because we had already been thinking about the switch from billets to hotels, but it was a slow going process, and this really kind of gave us the kick in the ass that we needed to make that change. So that's also been quite hard on our finance committee. They've been working really hard to try and figure out, what are the cancellation policies? What is all of the things that we need to know in order to make this change? How far in advance do we need to book for such a large group of people? All this kind of stuff. And even now, we're still working towards a very uncertain goal. We don't know if we're going to have an in-person parliament again this year, but we want to, and we're trying. Um, and that's very hard. It's really hard working towards something that you don't know. You don't know if it'll come to fruition, and you're putting so much energy into it. And so it's difficult, but we're really doing our best and just trying to stay positive, but also realistic. Um, yeah, so that's just a bit about what it's been like being kind of at the top of the ladder in OYP while COVID has been happening. Super weird, super weird time and experience. But also probably looks really good on a resume at this point that I've, been involved on at such a high level while going through this big crisis. Yeah, so there are some ways that you can engage with OYP, even though, we're all too old to like keep registering for the actual events now, because it is for ages 14 to 21. But you can find information on registration for people who you may know who are in that age range who might be interested. There is information about how to donate to the charity of the Ontario Youth Parliament Association. So, like we didn't get registration fees last year, so we're, the financial situation is also a complicated thing during COVID. And there's just updates on that website, what we're doing. And you can also find updates on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, which are all right there. And I made sure to change the font on the so that the actual handles are readable. Yeah, so I hope that you enjoyed and that you learned a little bit about Ontario Youth Parliament and what we've been going through the last over a year and a half.